Thanks so much, everybody, coming for tonight's class of our Teaching Photojournalism Master's Level class at Kent State University. You can really blame Candace Perkins Bowen for this. So if you have anybody to blame or to thank, make sure you thank Candace Perkins Bowen for that. So let's just start, and I'll just yell out people's names. I know you've read everybody's bio. I sent all the bios out to the students in my class. So they've got the long bios, but just sort of give us the one sentence introduction, and we'll start with Mike Simmons.
Evening, Mike Simmons. I'm up in upstate New York. I advise Tesserae, the yearbook at Corning Pen and Post High School. And then we'll also include the students in this part of it. So Alicia.
I am Alicia Merrifield. I teach in a K-12 private school down in Houston, Texas.
And Michelle.
Michelle Corbett, the Blaze Yearbook Advisor at Indian Trail High School and Academy in Kenosha, Wisconsin.
Awesome. Mark Murray.
Hi, I'm Mark Murray. I am the Executive Director of the Association of Texas Photography Instructors based in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Susan Massey.
Hi. Oops. Yes, I thought I was muted. Sorry. Hi, I'm Susan Massey. I'm from Shawnee Mission Northwest High School in lovely Shawnee, Kansas. That is just south of the Kansas City area. And I'm a teacher.
Where they have such innovative school names, right?
Yes, yes. Throughout the county, everybody has a direction. It's awesome.
All right, Mitch.
Hi, I'm Mitch Ziegler. I advise newspaper and yearbook at Redondo Union High School in Redondo Beach, California.
And Elizabeth.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Pinkham. I advise newspaper and yearbook at Louisville High School, which is just right outside of Dallas.
Sam.
Hey, I'm Sam Oldenburg. I advise student media at Western Kentucky University.
Kathy.
That's how I sign in. I'm Kathy Daly in Colorado, and I am a retired advisor, and I'm currently a professional photographer.
I was going to say, when she says retired, she doesn't really mean it.
Yeah. I just saw that.
All right, Carrie.
I am Carrie Conover in Wichita, Kansas. I teach journalism, photography, video, yearbook, newspaper, all of that.
And before that, he had a photography career, and I'm not sure quite why he's wearing a SCAD shirt.
Yeah, I'm an MFA student getting my MFA in photography through SCAD.
All right, Kevin, I'm going to come back to you because I saw you just walked in, so I'm going to let you catch your breath. Jennifer.
Hi, I teach 7th grade language arts and English language development at a K-8 school in Southern California.
And Kyle.
Hi, my name is Kyle Carter. I am the yearbook advisor at Richland R1 School in the middle of a cornfield in Southeast Missouri.
And he's the first school that I've been able to find that does not have a Twitter
account. No, or we barely have a Facebook.
Jacob. No, I can't hear you. No. That's odd. Technology. Mike has it. All right, that's cool. All right, Kevin, we're just introducing ourselves. You're muted. I can't hear you now either.
Actually, I'm joking. I was totally just miming that.
If you don't get it, Kevin's our token broadcast person in the group. So.
There you go. Staying true to that. But yes. I'm currently in the Sacramento area, and I am a broadcaster for ABC 10 here in the Sacramento area. So pleasure to meet everybody.
And he's challenging you to your Christmas decorations in the background. He challenged us all last week. I failed to meet the challenge this week.
Yeah, and you know, I'm still not done. There's still some more things I have to put up. So just don't mind any of that.
All right, Jacob, are you with us on audio? Not yet? All right. Well, that's Jacob. Wave, Jacob. Jacob will catch up with us in a little bit. Did I miss anybody because the order changed?
Stephen.
Stephen, are you there?
I'm here.
Tell us who you are.
Can you hear me? Okay. I'm Stephen Green. I teach at Kenny Creek High School in Conroe up north of Houston.
Houston. All right. Deanne Brown was going to join us, but she is out on the ranch in Fredericksburg, Texas. So, and she invited us all to join her, especially during peach season, but she may or may not be able to make it in tonight because she is so far out in the boonies that they barely have a phone connection, much less an internet connection. So she may join us at some point, but she's they're building a barn or something like that. Can you see Deanne building a barn?
They're building a house. Well, they're building a house.
They're building a house too, but I think tonight they were working on the barn or something. Yeah, they're building everything. They've got their retirement planned out. So I asked all of the speakers tonight to come prepared with the answer to the one question, and all of you all have taught at some level or another and advised at some level or another. So the one question was, if you knew something when you started if you knew something now that you know what I asked the question was, if you had something now that you knew when you started your career, what would it be? So all of these people that are taking this class have actually, some of them have been advising for quite a few years, but some of them haven't been advising at all. So really, what's the one thing that you would tell somebody that's relatively new to teaching photography or advising student publications in photography that you know now that you didn't know back then? Oh, Kyle Carter's coming back in. So Susan Massey, how about if we start with you?
I was afraid you'd do that. I would say that I think there have to be two. And one would be that I would teach my students to zoom with their feet first. That mine I'll try to make up for distance from the subject by using a lens. And they need to learn to get close with their feet and then use the lens to enhance that. And then the other thing would be, I wish I had understood really truly how to write a caption because I didn't for a long time. And if you think of a caption as a small story where the first sentence tells you what's going on in the photo and the second sentence tells you background about something you can't see, and then the quote follows up so that it's all one story. I tend to get from my students a sentence, an unrelated sentence that somehow sort of kind of fits with the topic, and then a quote from the person in the photo that has nothing to do with what's going on in the photo. And so, yeah, that would be the number one thing that those are the number one things that I wish I had known when I started.
Awesome. Kathy Daly.
When my very first thing and my major thing, I think Mark Murray will like this one, is light. Learn light, learn how it works, learn its Kelvin temperatures, teach kids how to use light effectively. I could go on a million other things, but to me, the magic in great photos is learning how to use light. It seems obvious, it's not. It really isn't, especially when they're trying to take pictures inside classrooms. So mine's all about the light.
All right, Carrie.
I think I might have been arrogant enough when I started teaching about 10 years ago, which is relatively recent. I might have been arrogant enough to think that I'm going to make these students into the best photographers the world's ever seen. They're going to want to do nothing but photography for a living, and hasn't really happened too much, like at all. I've had a lot of kids go on to be successful in music, chemical engineering, but I think my thing I would just tell myself is they're only in your steed for a couple semesters. Just share your joy with them and they'll take care of their own career.
Awesome. Mitch.
Okay, so I have to start by saying I spent 27 years teaching English and advising, but not formally teaching photography at all. So when I started teaching photography, what I had to learn was this was a different set of kids, entirely different, much more of a representative sample of the entire school, with just as diverse as it could possibly be. And I was used to, as an English teacher, being fairly stern, and that no longer worked in photography. I just had to be nicer, and just taught, and I relearned how to teach in the last 7 years, and it made a big difference in what's going on. The other thing is on assignments, what I found, and what's often hard, because again, the photo class being a diverse group, you had many unsuccessful students who died in things like English and math, but they almost always had a strong visual sense. But what I often set up by saying is like, here's the assignment. We'd go over the assignment. I go, you know something, guys, this is all A's. You all did exactly what I asked you to do. You know, if it was portraits, you found good light, or whatever it is you need to do for the requirements. And I said, and I don't care. These are boring. You did what I did asked. God bless you. Now let's see if we can go for some yearbook quality shots. And, you know, we just have to show a few slides from our yearbook. And then they would, at least, you know, the kids would go out, and you know how kids don't like to redo assignments, but a minimum of 2/3 of the class every single time works their keysters off trying to produce that yearbook shot, to the point where our academic shots in the yearbook are almost always from my beginning photo classes. They rarely come from my publication kits, because they're out there shooting in classrooms a lot. But that was a motivational technique that I learned.
Kyle?
So I come to teaching with between 15 and 20 years of journalism experience. I was a freelancer, staff photographer, all those beautiful things before I became a teacher. So I bring a very unique and different perspective. And the first thing that I always tell my staff is there is nothing off limits. And what I mean by that is you are a member of the media. Let me repeat that. You are a member of the media, okay? And that can mean in our classroom, that can mean in a gym, that can mean at a rec, that could mean at Major League Baseball. You earn your stripes in this job, and you do it both for us and in the outside world. And there's nothing that's off limits. So if there's something you want to cover, ask. Be nice no matter where you go, and make contacts everywhere you go, because it's amazing what can come if you do those two things. If you are nice and you ask and you find people and get to know people, it's incredible what you can do.
Awesome. Mark Murray?
So two things. One, you know, from looking back and you know, I started teaching photography when I had hair. That's how long ago it was. Many, you know, we'll get into the Bradley stories later, but I do think that looking back, one of the things that I wish I had done better was more conscientious about the grading process. I hate grading. I still hate grading. And for those of you that are teachers now, I'm sure that a lot of you experienced that. The only time I would grade was when, you know, actually I cleaned my apartment at the end of the 6 weeks, because that was the one thing I hated a little less than grading. And so I would do that to put off the grading. And I think, you know, looking back on it now, the electronic grade books and all those kinds of things that allow the kids to see how they're doing, that would have killed me as a teacher, because of the fact that I didn't do as great a job keeping up with it as I probably should have. So find that time, make sure you do that balance to do that. And I think the other thing that I would stress to you, so my program started out, you know, the old industrial arts photography program, which became career and technology. I would say to all of you photojournalism teachers that one of the things you want your kids to do is not just shoot photojournalism. They need to know how to be creative. They need to, you know, give them art assignments, give them commercial and product assignments. My students would do everything from architecture to portraits to photo stories to 4x5 product photography. And I think that's how you train really great photographers, is to have them really practice that whole breadth of photography.
Mike?
So I was never a yearbook kid in high school. I came to it because I was the new guy on the faculty and hung out with the yearbook photographer, and the yearbook photography advisor went out on maternity leave, and the principal said, "Hey, new guy, come do this." And I said, "Yes, sir, whatever you need." And 20 years later, here I am. The thing that I wish I knew in the fall of 2001 when I started was that I wasn't alone on that journey. Nothing technical, nothing about aperture, nothing about light. And I respect all of that feedback that you guys have gotten already. But I think as you progress into whatever's next for you, if you stay the course with advising, things like ATPI and JEA and a local advisor network or a group on Facebook. I think Kyle and I have probably spent like a grand total of an hour together face to face, maybe, but I know like the next time that I see him, the beer's on me, because what I get from just being in his presence on social media alone, almost, even the passive experience, lifts me up and inspires me. And, you know, my friendships with Bradley and Mark and Mitch, aside from a professional organization, that's what sustains me through some really tough and difficult days, when frankly my kids are driving me effing up a wall, or we're in the middle of a global pandemic and I haven't even opened InDesign yet to start making pages. So you're not alone. You've got professional organizations, you've got a brain trust, you've got friends. Develop the network, be active in the network and give back where you can, because that's fulfilling too, and that stuff matters, and paying it forward matters. But just recognize that in all of this, you're not alone.
And if you want to hear Mike say that in a different way, his words were so eloquent at the end of our video for the judging. I meant to tell you
thanks,
thanks
man.
for that, Mike. That was amazing. Sam.
Mine's not 100% photo related, but bear with me on it. I think my piece of advice to first year me would just be to remember that every student is different. And I mean that in a lot of different ways. I mean, of course, at the most basic level, have a different background, a different experience. They should try to understand they all have a different reason that they are staying in front of you now holding a camera. But I think really what I want to focus on is that like our relationship as an advisor with each student is a little bit different too. The first like year or two at the end of the years, I'd like really be beating myself up that, you know, some of my editors and some of my students, I'd be, you know, hugging and tearing up saying goodbye to them. And some of them, you know, they were leaving, but I wasn't necessarily as sad to see them go, or I didn't feel like we had as close of a relationship. And so it took me a while to realize, you know, that relationship with students is different because, you know, I'm only half of it each time. The student is different each time. And so each student, you know, needs different forms of challenges and different forms of support when you're working with them. And I think, you know, in photo, and especially if you're advising publications, it's a lot easier to give that sort of differentiation than it is in a normal classroom. And one of the things that I really like about teaching as an advisor, as opposed to when I teach in a classroom, is that I'm not necessarily like giving a lesson to everyone at once. I mean, we do some workshops and stuff occasionally, but as an advisor, when I'm teaching something, it's because it comes up in real time that they need to know it right then. And so like, one, they're very eager to learn it. But you know, the situations change a little bit from year to year, what comes up. You know, I'm always kind of pulling from my same toolbox of tricks and ideas, and some of that, you know, gets repeated from year to year, but kind of the mix of tricks and advice that each student gets ends up being a little bit different. So I think just remember that each student, you know, needs something different from you, and that you can provide something different to each student is what I would try and remember.
Excellent. So I think we got Jacob on audio now. So Jacob, you want to tell everybody hi?
Hi, hopefully it works now. You can hear me?
Yeah.
I'm Jacob Wilkin. I've actually met Carrie a couple times. I teach journalism at West High School in Wichita, Kansas, and I'm a third-year teacher.
Awesome. And you're on your phone now, right?
Yeah, I'm on my phone now, so it magically works.
Yay. All right, so Kevin, I asked the students to come prepared with some questions for y'all. I said they could ask them to the entire group, or they could ask one person specifically, or however it plays out. And we'll just see where things go kind of naturally. And Kevin gets the first question. Kevin always comes, Kevin and Melissa, is Melissa here? Come to us with a unique perspective coming from the broadcast world. And I'm always welcome to get my eyes open to that broadcast world. But Kevin's never been in the classroom. So I think he has some unique questions and ideas for all of us. And so I promised him the first question. So Kevin, or where did Kevin go?
I'm right here.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
Well, thank you, Dr. Wilson. I really appreciate that. And thank you to all of the guest speakers here, everyone. There's just so much to take from everything because, like he said, I am currently not an educator. Now, I have been in the classroom before. I was a substitute teacher in Los Angeles Unified School District and Culver City Unified School District for about 8 years. So I got a little bit of it. I understand Mitch is from Redondo Beach. I actually subbed in Hermosa Beach Unified a long time ago as well. So, but yeah, nothing compared to full-time. So my question that I have actually is to Kyle. Kyle, you said something very interesting when you were just talking right now. And
yes, sir.
This is pertaining to fighting for whatever it is that you want to cover.
Heck yeah.
As a broadcaster, we have pitch meetings every morning, or editorial meetings, shall I say, before our newscast.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when all the reporters and photojournalists come in there and they pitch their ideas, whatever it is that they want to cover during that particular day.
Yep.
Now, sometimes people are a little apprehensive or reluctant to pitch certain ideas because they don't know how it's going to be received for management or if they're going to shoot them down. So, needless to say, it can be a little nerve-wracking at times, but, you had mentioned, the fact that you should fight, you're in the media, you can cover whatever it is that you want. So my question to you is, how do you encourage and really ignite confidence in your students or people that may kind of be on the edge about trying to pitch an idea or wanting to cover something, but they may be a little reluctant to do that?
Sure.
How do you get them to get over that edge of it?
So the way I have my class structured, I am the advisor, which means I do two things really well. I pick up coffee and food, and I sit down and let them run the show. My editor runs everything. Whenever we have our pitch meetings, we don't do it in broadcast daily because we don't have a daily, obviously, but we do have it like monthly that we'll go through. And the idea is that when you come in, there are no dumb ideas. Now, we do have dumb people amongst our group, and they'll admit it. And you know what? It's a joke. We get it. It's funny. But at the same time, we all look at each other and go, look, if there's something that you're interested in, you're not the only one that's interested in it. Now, it could be something about a student that has cancer. It could be something about a student that, attended a Black Lives Matter. It could be a presidential rally. It could be a baseball, whatever it is. If there's something that you want to do, if there's something you think is interesting, others will think it's interesting too. And that's probably something that's going to have an effect on your life. That's what we do as media, is we tell stories and we make sure that we remove ourselves from the story, but we tell the story of what happens. So I had a kid come to me, and this is my 8th year teaching. We had never really covered rodeo before because rodeo just wasn't a big thing. Even being very, very rural, rodeo was never a big thing. But this kid said, hey, look, I was around rodeo for a long time. I know it. And a couple of my editors looked at me and said, well, there's nothing really there for us, but it is within our coverage area because we look at our school district as our coverage area. It's happening in our coverage area, so let's go cover it. And dang it, if we didn't have 3 kids ride that night, like 3 kids from our school that rode. So we ended up being able to do features on all 3 of them because we had art of all 3 of them. And that's something we never would have had we have not just taken the step and gone to that. And we can do that on a local level. I've done that on a national level. We covered President Trump 2 years ago when he came to Cape Girardeau. And, we thought, okay, this will be cool fodder. We have Biden, we have, everybody. We covered, I think, 9 presidential candidates in the last 3 years. But the cool thing was we happened to be at this one rally, and we look across the stage, and behind the stage is one of our students. He's sitting behind President Trump. So we were able to get Trump in the foreground and the kid in focus, and the story's about the kid. The story's not really about Trump, but it's about him being able to attend his first political rally. So, it doesn't matter where you're at or what you're doing. Like I said, if it matters to you, it probably matters to somebody else. So make sure that you're telling all of those stories. Yes, try to find a local angle if you can. Try to find something where it ties into us. But if it's interesting to you, it's probably interesting to somebody else in the group and one of our readers as well.
Wow, thank you. I really appreciate that answer. And I think you hit it dead on the doorknob. If it's interesting to you, there's somebody else that will find it interesting. So that's really something good to just kind of resonate there. So thank you so much. That was such an eloquent way of answering that. And
Anytime, Kevin. Anytime.
For somebody in rural Missouri. All right, we'll come back. So if the rest of you have something to say on that, we'll circle back to it. But I think Alicia's got a question.
Really, it's kind of crazy right now. And I usually have 16 to 20 photojournalism kids. I have 8 this year. 6 are at home. 2 are in school. We found out yesterday that they will be quarantined when we get back. So what is your, sorry, Kyle. They take probably 75% of the photos for our book. We do rely a lot on parents just simply because, it's hard to get a kindergartner to get a photo of them. I'm not even allowed on the elementary campus. We can only Zoom with the pre-K kids right now. But what would be your go-to lesson with your kids, knowing that they don't have access to your cameras, they don't have access to our kids? And I got 2 weeks before Christmas, and I'm just trying to get through a deadline right now.
Gary, you want to start?
You're gonna have me start with that?
Well, it was between you and Sam.
Alicia, tell me again, it sounds like you're dealing with what age students?
I teach, my photojournalism kids are all high school.
Okay.
But our campus is pre-K 2s. Well, we don't have 2-year-olds this year, but we have pre-K 3-year-olds through grade 12.
Cell phones, not SLRs, right, Alicia?
I do not have enough SLRs for everybody. They do have the opportunity to check mine out. I can have 2 out at a time so that the other 2 can be quarantined in between. But most of their most of their cell phones are pretty fancy. So I'm just dealing with that.
That was the first thing I thought of was, going to be some cell phone usage. I remember last spring when all of this went down, it was just finishing that yearbook. We're a fall delivery book, so our final deadline is in June, and it was just a headache getting that out. Golly, I remember struggling so hard just getting the Adobe access to all my students so they could do InDesign, Photoshop. And this fall, I'm not even really doing a whole lot of that. I'm kind of getting by with a website, which I'm almost embarrassed to say. I don't know if any of you've ever heard of it, photopea.com. Photopea.com is really similar to Photoshop, but that's just to kind of get them familiarity with, things you do in Photoshop. Has nothing to do with, getting the kids out to do the things they need to photograph. I'm fortunate because we're hybrid and I have a fair amount of turnout from day to day, and I can get my kids shooting. So somebody else maybe could step in. That's tough.
Well, we're hybrid by choice. So it's whatever parents want to send their kids. Bradley went through Photopea, whatever, with us last week. I think I got to see his article ahead of time, but that he wrote, but yeah, it's crazy. I just didn't know if there was something that you could go just to keep them motivated. Like, we've started our blogs, we started all this. We're just kind of trucking along.
Mike, you want to chime in on that?
Well, I might have misunderstood your question, Alicia, but I mean, the first priority is, regardless of the device that you're working with, is I think teaching rules of composition and developing their eye. It doesn't matter if you're starting to talk about shutter speed, aperture, this and that. If they're dealing with like an iPhone 8 or 11 or whatever, have them get down low, have them zoom in with their feet, have them compose, have them look at their light. You're not going to be successful in Friday Night Lights. Not that any of us are really having Friday Night Lights right now with an iPhone, but middle of the day, some kids in some kind of learning activity or another, to me, it's that eye stuff. And I think one thing that I've been trying to get inside advisors' heads, especially the crew that's asking like every day on Facebook. If you're going to solicit and crowdsource, you're going to get a much higher hit rate if you teach your community what you're looking for and show them examples. So when we're looking for examples of kids at home online learning nooks, we're having our photographers take pictures of themselves or their little brothers and sisters learning nooks and saying, hey, Jeremy, I need a photo that looks like this. And at least we're giving them something to work with and modeling that. So that's been helpful. I've heard of some other advisors doing that in video form, TikToks, Instagram, on social media. So like, check us out on Instagram, check out that video. This is what we need from you. That's cool. Yeah. And just to plug on Photopea, it sounds like you guys did look at it already, but it's, like I said in the chat, it's astonishing that it's legal. It's pretty dang impressive for a website. So
before we talk about Photopea a little bit more, let me add one more thing, and it goes back to what Susan said at the very beginning in terms of her comments, that no matter what kind of camera you're taking pictures with, it really is about composition. It's about filling the frame. It's about zooming with your feet. And I think that's really where, not knowing what kind of equipment your kids are going to have to shoot with, that's what you need to concentrate on. Going back to my days in college photography programs, and the thing that I would do with my kids, because it was what I had to do when I was learning photography, is that we weren't allowed to crop once we had taken the picture. So we had to do all of our cropping. We had to think about cropping in front of the picture rather than afterwards. And I think that really taught me how to see through the viewfinder, how to really compose the frame in a way that made for stronger pictures, and in a digital world actually gives you a whole lot more data to work with if you've got that capability. So I think exactly what Mike said, you want to train and show. One of the things that we talked about in one of the summer workshops was to actually have your photographers do some Zoom lessons for parents. Have them do some photo lessons for parents, saying, hey, we're crowdsourcing pictures. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about how to use your camera and get better pictures, we're going to do a training class for you.
Alicia, one of the problems that we had, and I teach at a school of 325 kids, pre-K through seniors. There is a sidewalk that separates the high school, junior high, and the elementary, and we don't cross that sidewalk this year. That's how big of a deal it is for us, because they're trying to keep it in our building. So I had to bribe some teachers, because I know thousands of elementary teachers, and they all take pictures of their classroom. They all take pictures of their kids. They all use their phones. So, as much as we want it to be a student-centric created book, I had to take my step back and say, look, we're going to have some other help with this year. So I've had just about every elementary teacher that we have is feeding me images. And like yesterday, I sent out an email that said, hey guys, I stuck some cookies in the staff room in the elementary. Just a reminder, if you guys do any cool Thanksgiving projects, I'd love to have art of it. And I got art from probably 4 teachers today. So yeah, I've got my own elementary kid as well.
Susan, you're still in the classroom and having to deal with the yearbook. How are you handling all these times?
Poorly. To be honest, we're struggling a lot, but we do have the advantage. We still have sports. We're still able to get, shots. We're trying a lot of different things. I also have a very young staff. I don't have any seniors. And so we are truly trying to build a staff. More than half of my group is our freshmen. And so we're doing a lot of educating. I'm doing a lot of leadership with my kids because my editors are all juniors. And so, we're struggling. Let's just say that. As far as what are we doing to get pictures? Well, I don't remember who it was I think it was you, Kyle, that said you ask them to go out and shoot this thing, and they go out and they shoot exactly what you asked them to shoot. And then when you say, yeah, well, good job, you shot exactly what I asked you to shoot, but that's not really what I wanted. I wanted what you would think of after you got there and shot what I asked you to shoot. And I'm having trouble with creativity among my students. They just seem tired. I don't know a better word for it. They just seem tired. So I would say the majority of my time, honestly, I wish I could tell you that I'm spending it teaching composition and teaching all the things that I think are important. But honestly, I'm spending my time trying to pump my kids up. And I'm spending my time trying to make them feel good about what they are turning in, and hoping that as we say, wow, this is such a great angle, next time shoot from the other side. They have a lovely shot of the other team tackling our guy. And yeah, it's a great shot, but it's a picture of our guys' butts. And so we're doing discussions like that. And I'm trying to make it fun, and I'm trying to make it so we laugh a lot. And so, yeah, particularly in football, we've spent a lot of time looking at butts and talking about butts because my kids are shooting from the wrong side of the ball.
So Susan, I know you mailed all those photos to the opposing team's yearbook advisor, right?
Say that again.
You emailed all those photos to the opposing team's yearbook advisor so they could use them, right?
Oh, hell no.
I will say I did that to one of the schools just because I know the advisor through Instagram. I did that to her, and she has now sent me photos of my kids from their game. So I will say might be a
We have a building in Southeast Missouri. I mean, we all share stuff every game. So my kids get stuff, we send it out. We do it all the time.
Well, to be honest, the ones that we have good shots of, they're the other Shawnee Mission schools. And so it's Dow Tate's school and Becky Tate's school. And they just don't really need anything from me. Thank you very much. But no, Alicia, I appreciate your comment, and I totally agree with you. The only person that I've really shared shots with this year is Tucker Love, who's in another Shawnee Mission school. The weirdest situation, because of COVID, we were both supposed to play, we were both supposed to play teams from the same school district, but we couldn't because of COVID. And so they paired us up to play Shawnee Mission South and Shawnee Mission North instead of us playing the Olathe schools. Well, we both had homecoming that night. So weirdest of all weird things, we crowned a queen before the game, and we crowned a queen at halftime. And my comment to Tucker was, how did they talk you guys into taking the before the game stuff? I mean, Northwest would have been upset if we'd had to crown before the game. And he said, what are you talking about? That's when we crown our queen. We don't do it at halftime. And I was like, okie doke. So at any rate, we have shared pictures of each other's homecoming so that, yes, so that we can do a story about, a tale of two homecomings.
We used to share pictures when I was in high school, but back when I was in high school, we had 24 pictures on a roll of film, and after each picture, you had to stop and advance the frame. So
that's right.
if we got a football picture that was in focus, we were like, yes. Yeah.
If you got one in focus in 24 shots, exactly. It was yes.
Exactly. And we're really not kidding about that. So yeah, no. we shared with our opposing schools because if we had 3 pictures between us, we were happy. All right, I promise. Yeah.
Sorry, I want to go ahead, Kathy.
Even though the kids are a lot of them are remote learning, are they still working in teams via FaceTime or Zoom or just texting each other so that they can put together? I saw this great Netflix show, Harold and Lily and a Hollywood Love Story. And it's how he did storyboards. And all I could think of was that is perfect for designing a yearbook spread, or a newspaper spread. But I'm wondering, are your kids still working as teams, even if it's remotely?
Yes.
Elizabeth, anybody? Michelle, jump in.
Yeah, mine are. We use Slack. Thank you to Mike for introducing us to Slack a few years ago. We use Slack, and they've been not only working in teams that way, but they've really kind of just used that for like staff bonding stuff. Like they started a whole pets channel today to just share pictures of their pets. So yeah, they're definitely working on teams.
All right, I promised Stephen the next question. So Stephen, it's all you.
All right, mine's a rather complicated question. I find like the more I learn about, because when I started teaching, I was a reporter by trade and profession, and then I jumped in and then I taught mostly photography, which I knew a little bit about, but then anyway, over the next few years, I've kind of learned a lot. And I find that the more I learn, the more I think, oh, the kids need to know this too. And I tend to pack more and more and more into the class as the years go on. So kind of a two-part question is, one, if you've got a photography class and that's all that they're doing for photojournalism, whatever, what all are you packing into that semester or the year? Like, what is your main, I want to get that out of that takeaway? And then once they're into maybe your advanced program, your publications or whatever, what are you reteaching just to kind of refresh those skills?
Mark, you want to start?
Yeah, let me deal with that first part, Stephen. I think that, and I think anyone in this group that takes pictures on a regular basis would agree with this, that, you know, I was never as good a photographer. In fact, they'll all agree with this part. I was never as good a photographer as I was that first semester in college, when I was having to do 3 rolls of film and 6 black and white prints from the darkroom every Friday for critique. You know, that level of production, in addition to all my other college classes, that level of production taught me to be a better photographer than almost anything else that I've done since then. And I think that's one of the things that I would always say, is that you may not necessarily be cramming more and more concepts, but what you are doing is cramming in practice and repractice and practice again, because that's how they're going to learn to see better. That's how they're going to learn to let that camera technical stuff get out of the way so that they can create really great images. So I think what you do is you introduce a concept and then get them to practice that enough to where they're doing it without having to think about it. Because I think the thing about photography, and the thing that I love about it, is that there's so many variables, there's so many things going on that you've got to keep up with, that you've got to be able to get some of those so that they happen without you having to think about it. And so the only way,
add to Mark's comment about that, that's his way of getting out of grading, because he had the students do peer evaluations, and yeah.
Hey, whatever it took to avoid grading, I would figure out a way to do that. But I think so. Like it was said earlier, you start, like Kathy said, you start with light, you deal with composition, you deal with storytelling, and then you really get them to hone that skill by continuously practicing it. And even in a Zoom virtual classroom now, it's still like, all right, I want to see pictures from you every Friday. I think our publication staffs are generally not as good at this as a pure photo classroom. But if you're not doing class critiques on a regular basis, that would be one of the things I would tell you need to do, because it's really important for a student to learn how to talk about not only their work, but somebody else's work, and to be able to hear criticism of their work and not take it personally. And the only way that's going to happen is by putting that picture up on the screen and saying, all right, Mike, tell me what you think about this picture that Bradley took.
And thank you from the college professor's point of view. They've got to learn that while they're in high school. Otherwise, they're going to be crying the first day of my class.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Kathy, you want to chime in on that thought?
I agree with everything that Mark said. I also think that doing the weekly critique should have a theme. So like everybody's doing an academic shot or a portrait shot or something, so that they're kind of looking at the same idea that week and not putting too much into them. I teach small private photo lessons, and it's overwhelming. And, just getting aperture, ISO, and shutter speed down is huge. I mean, it sounds so obvious, but it's not for the kids right off the bat. So don't give them too much, but give them one specific goal for each week. And I think having that focus really helps.
So I'm just going to ask this question to the group, and students in the class and others, anybody can answer. I'm seeing students less and less tolerant and willing to be critiqued. That is, they really don't like putting themselves up and having the picture up on the board and having to defend it and explain it and all that. But I always use the analogy of having to pass off your music in band. My band director would call on us and say, play your part. If you weren't ready to play in front of the entire band, you were going to be embarrassed. But I learned how to get a thick skin because of that. And, right?
I think, sorry, Brett, I think that fact, I think you're totally right. And I think that's all the evidence to prove that we need to do it and do it more. Because and I hate this, but the snowflakeness of a lot of them is real. I know that gets bandied around politically, and that's not what I mean, but I think those of you that know me on the call, I'm probably one of the softer, more wear my emotions on the sleeve people that and even at that, I'm like, y'all need to toughen up and recognize that this is about your work, and your work is not up to snuff. You are still a lovely human being, but your work sucks. Go do it again. And go. And of course, we're not delivering the messages that way, but I think you're right. And I think that's, again, all the evidence that we need to do even more so that a kid could come out of our programs and look back and say, it was with Mr. Ziegler, it was with Ms. Massey that I got that thick skin. And I'm so thankful for it that I went through that, because now I know how to both take and give critique and come out fine and better on the other side for it.
Go ahead.
So Bradley, the kid that I had that won the JEA Superior for his portfolio, Devin came to my program, and in 8th grade, he sat in the corner. And when I say sat in the corner, he put his chair physically in the corner of the room and did not want to speak to anyone, including his classmates. He applied, got on staff his freshman year, and started shooting. And after his first critique, he quit. And my editor went to him and said, look, it's not that bad. It's just we're trying to help you learn. We want to make you better. Carter is our advisor, but my job as the editor is to make everybody better. So he stayed. And now, because I've had 2 other successions, he was now my editor his junior year and received the Superior from JEA. And it's because it was because of critiques, because he kept getting better every time out.
One of the things that, every time we did a critique at the end of each assignment, I would vary the way. Sometimes I might talk about the work. A lot of times I would say, all right, I'd call on someone in the class to say, pick out your favorite photo on the board and stand up there and talk about it in terms of its lighting and its composition and the story and what you think they were doing. And one of the questions I always ask is, and if you were going to take the picture, what's one thing you would do differently to make it your own? So that they had to not only look at that picture in terms of a critique, but really think about it. How would I do it differently? Well, whoever's picture they picked out, that's who got to stand up next and pick out the next picture. So it was a way to sort of move them through the entire class so that by the time they were done, everybody had gotten up at the board to talk about the photographs. And I think that was, not everybody, very few of you on this are in this call know Stan Godwin, who was my photo professor at East Texas State University. But Stan was brutal when it came to our critiques in college. It was, You know, not as bad as Bradley. You know, Stan never made anyone cry, but Bradley has made adults cry when he's critiqued their photos. And we're not saying that you have to do that. See, I got a Bradley story in there. But it is it's something that you've got to help. I think you need to feel good about being able to do that. And I think you've also got to get the students to feel good about being able to do that as well. One of the things that we learned that we did as a college assignment that I had all of my students do on a regular basis was what we called a looking report, where each week they had to find a photograph somewhere that they really liked and write up a critique about it in terms of its composition, its lighting, and all those kinds of things, so that they not only were learning how to talk about it verbally, but also be able to write about photography as well.
Kyle, you want to tell us who these people are that are on my picture?
It would be my honor. So the cat in the middle is Devin Duffy. He received a superior from JEA for his portfolio. He became an editor because my one editor fired the production coordinator, so he became the production coordinator. In January of last year, I fired both my editor and assistant editor, so he became our EIC that fast. And the cat ran with it. I mean, I can't do any better for him. Daisy Rich is over to the left. She's probably has the best eye of any student I've ever seen. I picked her up in 8th grade when she moved there, and the girl can do stuff that I can't explain. I mean, I'm so impressed with her. And then Cassie was our first year last year with us. She won a superior in first year photography. This kid has taken stuff like she'll go on her own and she's like, hey, can you get me credentials too? And then you name it. And she's like, no, you don't have to go anymore. Don't worry. I can get myself in. I can do everything. 3 very impressive students in that photograph. Thank you, Bradley.
I think there's an important thing that goes with what you just said. And that is that once you get students who are at that level, then you turn them loose and you let them train the rest of your staff. And then that becomes the tradition on your staff, that one group trains the next group, trains the next group. And it's a way that you maintain that excellence because it just becomes expected. Right. It just becomes a piece of your program. And so exactly what Kyle just talked about, I mean, to me, that is where I have found the most success. It's not been because I'm a good teacher. It's because I have kids who care and are passionate and who pass it down.
So I was telling you about Daisy, Bradley, the smug mug shot that she got from the top of the 2 basketball players. I've never taught her remote photography. Never. Liza King, who was one of my seniors 2 or 3 years ago, took her up in the lift in 8th grade and taught her how to hang the camera when she was 12 or 13 years old. So yeah, as long as you can keep your kids teaching that next generation, it's amazing what they can pick up and learn and run with.
Yeah. And the greatest test of a good teacher is when they learn more than you can teach them, right? Elizabeth, I promised you the next question. It's all you.
Okay. So I've been advising newspaper for 6 years, but this is my first year doing yearbook. So I guess my question is, do y'all have like a certain way that you organize what photographers go to what event, like in a typical year, obviously? Just because I feel like right now my editors are kind of running the show. So how do you what do you require, I guess, when it comes to like kids shooting events and stuff outside of this whole day in particular?
Mitch, you want to go first and then Mike?
Yeah, I'll start that one. So we just use the GroupMe app, and I don't have newspaper photographers. I don't have yearbook photographers. I have photographers. I have a photo staff running across 3 class periods, both newspaper and yearbook. So we just run a GroupMe for that all the photographers belong to, and we always have one person who designates all the assignments for the week, or like the events going on during the week that we really need shot. And this was like such a distant memory at this point. We have nothing happening anymore, so we have other challenges. But then, you know, we kind of figure out a system of like, you're up next and you're shooting this today. And if you don't, you better have a good excuse and you better sign up now for something else. And we try to do some flexibility with that. And the kids I'll tell you, last year, by the time we shut down on March 13th, that was barely into spring sports. And my editor was on top of it. And we had shots of every sport except for volleyball by the time we went down. And the rest we were able to crowdsource sort of through parents. You can imagine how crummy those are. But we managed to cover everything. And our final deadline was going to be late. We would have until like late April to finish shooting. But by March 13th, we had done it. And just through the app and holding kids accountable and the editors holding them accountable, they seem to respond well. I mean, I've never had these many things shot front loaded. It's never happened to us in the past. And you know, that was the perfect year for it, obviously.
Mike?
Yeah, not a ton different. We use Google Calendar, and our photo editors will drop our sporting events into a shared calendar that everybody on staff has edit access to. And we found a hack a few years back that if you put the photographer's name in the where field, then it shows up in the summary of the calendar in the agenda view. And so just at a glance, you can tell who or what you've got people signed up for. So I'm not sure, Alicia or Bradley, if you can, I can do this briefly, if you can give me screen share access, if that's okay. But between that and Slack, it's been really helpful. We have our photographers shoot 3 sporting events in a given season, and across the 3 seasons, then that gives us 9 after school events, but they can also be performing arts events. In that where field, you can just see down here, it's grayed out, but on November 20th last year, Belinda and Caitlin put their names in on the where field, Kristen Hotman and Aria there. And so everywhere that there's a name next to an event, that's how we knew that we had coverage. And you can see it was a little bit spotty, actually. I was going through, I was like, oh, this isn't good, but that ship sailed a long freaking time ago. But it's just a helpful way to keep track of it. And then I've got a video that I can share with you, but we ported Google Calendar into Slack, and there's a bot that will report out on a set time of day. And it says, so for us, it's at 8 in the morning. These are the shooting events today, and it includes the photographer's name. So we get a report out every morning, and it's right there in your pocket. So there's no excuses not remembering what you've got at 5 o'clock that afternoon. So it's kind of a technical answer, but I can go offline with you on that if you want to follow up.
And just to all the speakers, the students have all of your email addresses, so then they follow all that up. All right, Michelle, you want the next question?
Can I interject something very briefly?
Sure.
Please, it's a people thing that follows up, I think, on what Sam was saying. I just want to, so I was a special education teacher before any of you knew me. And I have had the valedictorian on staff, and I've had kids with severe learning disabilities on staff. And I just want to, because I see it every once in a while, again, on Facebook, because I spend far too much time there. But people will be like, you know, they're just letting anybody on my staff, and these kids don't want to, and there's no way I'm ever going to make this work. And like, if you go in with a shit attitude, sorry, like it's not going to work. It's just not. But you can make student publications work for every kid. I've had a kid in photo 1 with pretty severe cerebral palsy, couldn't hold a camera, but he could push with like his wrist and a finger. And so we got a Manfrotto magic clamp and clamped a camera to his wheelchair and set that sucker up. And that kid, the look on that kid's face when he was popping off photos was, holy hell, man. It still gives me chills just thinking about it. And the other thing is that, you know, student publications don't need every kid, but there are some kids that desperately need student publications. And those are the kids that are going to put their chair over in the corner of the room and send up all sorts of "don't come near me" flags, just like a wounded animal would, frankly. And I think we need to listen to that and do our intuition. And even when those kids like push us off 3 or 5 or 7 times, like it might be that 8th time that there's a breakthrough and something transformative happens. It's just, I just really like, while we've got the opportunity to get in the ears of some people that we hope are going to be doing this for a long time to come, I think those two things that they can work for anybody. And for some of those kids, they need it a lot more than I've had kids on my staff that needed us way more than we needed them. We got barely anything out of them, but those kids would come back after they graduated to check in and be like, hey, Mr. Simmons, how's the lab? How's everything going? I'm like, dude, you barely gave me 2 captions last year, and it is damn nice to see you. I just, it's just the way that it is. So I apologize. Not really, Bradley. I needed to get that. I think Sam triggered me into that. So thank you.
I bet we can all
Can I chime in with one other thing on photo assignments too? I think when you're giving assignments, it's really important to give things specifically to a photographer and not just throw it out to the whole room or to the whole Slack channel saying, hey, who can cover this? So one of two things will happen that way. You'll either get the same people volunteering over and over to cover things, or no one will volunteer because they just assume someone else will get it. And if you go specifically to someone, whether it's you going to them or their editor going to them, they feel special that you're asking them to do that, and they're more likely to say yes and cover it. And I think part of that comes to what I talked about earlier about people being different too, that it's, sometimes putting someone on something because they need that challenge, they need to grow in that area. Sometimes it's because they're really good and you need someone who can go to this and can deliver, and they can deliver on that particular type of assignment.
Agreed. Michelle.
Okay, so we are hopefully starting a new photojournalism class next year or the year after, depends on when our school board approves it. So what's one resource that you guys can't live without, that you would say we have to have this, or we have to use this, or whatever that is?
Sam, you want to start?
Sure. Are we, like, when you say resource, are you talking like equipment, or are you talking like books? Like, what are you?
I mean, we have, so for yearbook, we use Nikons right now. And we've, so not so much camera equipment, but it can be camera equipment, like really whatever you guys feel like is the one, like if you were starting a photojournalism class, like what is the resource that you would say you absolutely have to have?
Okay, so yeah, mine wasn't going towards equipment first, so I just wanted to be sure that wasn't what you were asking about. I don't know, this might seem like really basic and stupid, but just like Pinterest and the internet, that a lot of our best things come from students like seeing inspiration and paying attention to what's out there. And our photo editors will see things they like and then pin it and hold on to it, and a month or 2 months later something will come up where they're like, oh yeah, this is perfect, this is, now we can use this idea that we saw somewhere else. And I think just getting them looking for that inspiration is, I don't know if that's necessarily technically a resource, but the internet, all of it.
Mike?
I put in the low glass idea there. If I understand correctly, for you as the adult in the room, it's the memberships and affiliations and associations. That's a huge one. I think there's people asking questions left, right, and center on social media, and we're like, dude, join JEA. Like it's there. It's not absolutely every answer, but it's damn near 90% of what you need. That's a huge one.
Facebook.
Yeah, I would.
Some great groups on Facebook right now.
There really are. Yeah, there really are.
Yeah, if you're not in the high school photography teachers group on Facebook, that's a great resource. You can always join the ATPI group on Facebook, but there are some others out there as well that are providing some great conversation and showing some great student work as well. Wide variety of work. I do think that, Kerry posted in the chat that he had to leave, but I think one of the things that he posted there, I think I would encourage all of you to include in your class, even though it's a lot about production and it's a lot about trying to get the pictures that you need for the publication. Make sure you're including some history of photography. If nothing else, have them looking at the work of W. Gene Smith or Sebastião Salgado or some of those amazing documentary photographers, if nothing else, that may inspire them to come up with new ways or new ideas for the stories that they want to tell. But I think it's incredibly important for, in photography or any other area, for us to know the history. How did we get to where we are today? And that means really knowing who some of those people are that we're standing on the shoulders of.
Who hasn't? Susan, you haven't chimed in on this one.
So I was gonna, my answer is weird.
Yay!
I wish I had more of, it's just time. Because what I find is most effective as far as what do I need with my students, I need to go stand next to them. I need to spend time with my newest photographers at a football game, at a basketball game, in the classroom, in wherever they're going to go shoot, and let them do what they're going to do, watch what they did, and then say, okay, good job on all that. Now, what if you, whatever. And I don't think that that has been more important ever than this year. I am finding that the time that I'm spending at sporting events in classrooms that are not my own, just side by side with my photographers, that's where it's paying off. It's not the Zoom lesson that I did a bang up job on. It's not the presentation that I put together in Keynote and did a voiceover to, and I'm so proud of that. None of that really seems to matter. What matters is it's the time that you're next to the kid and the kid says, my lens isn't working. And you're like, well, try moving. Yeah. And it'll all be good. Oh, wow, it works. Yes, it does.
That's where you can also push them forward, right? Step
what?
Closer. You can tell them, step closer, take a step closer, take a step.
Yes. And you can say, you still don't have the shot of, and try shooting that. Try shooting from the end zone. Go talk to that professional photographer over there. Find out what they're looking for. Follow them around. Just mirror everything they do. You'll learn from it. Ask them questions. Those are, to me, there's your invaluable. Like I said, it's a weird thing to say as what's the thing I need more than anything else? It's time. My time to give to kids in a one-on-one, or me and 3 photographers out shooting. That's the invaluable thing for me.
Kathy, any thoughts on that one? And then Jacob's got a question.
Just piggybacking on the time, when I started teaching I teach 4-on-1 classes to adults, to kids, to everybody. And as I honed it down, fewer words, more doing. It's all, you can read the manual, it's Greek. The kids don't get it. You can buy a textbook. The kids won't get it. But if you're with Susan on the sideline with the kid, playing with that setting, they get it. So you're not reading about doing. So that would be mine, is 100, as much as you can actual, and you don't have to, like Bradley, when we had to pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars for rolls of film and developing, we don't have to pay for that anymore. We just, we can experiment more.
Yeah, which is really changed the way we teach too, right? I agree. All right, Jacob, I think, Jacob, are you the last student to ask a question? If not, if you haven't asked a question, you can text me or message me in the chat so I know who hasn't asked a question. Jacob, it's all you.
Hey, so like I said, it's my 3rd year at West High, and I have struggled with, getting my students to lead each other. They'll respond well to the content and do their work. My editor-in-chief would make the whole yearbook by herself if I let her. But my question is, if you, as experienced journalism professionals, were to walk into a new classroom at the beginning of next school year, where maybe they didn't have an established program, how would you go about building up the leadership skill in your students to get them to lead other students?
Carrie's gone, isn't he?
Yeah, he is.
Here's how I would do it. Okay. I walk in and say, I need somebody to take out the trash. The guy that takes the trash out is the guy that wants the leadership position because he has humility and he's willing to work for everybody else in the room. I want people that are willing to work not only in front of the camera, but behind. And not only do I need you to work behind, I need you to work behind with your class, the class in front of you, the class behind you. So I want people that will work. One of the questions that we take whenever we do our interviews is, can you take instruction from a student? And can you take instruction from a student that is younger than you? My EIC 3 years ago was a sophomore. So she was leading seniors and she had 8 seniors on her staff and she was a sophomore. And the reason was everybody looked at her and went, well, she's Kate Wyman. So Kate Wyman should be in charge. So when we came in, I said, look, I'm looking for leaders. I need people that are willing to listen to others and that will work with others. If you can do that, I don't care what your GPA is. You can work on my staff.
Kathy?
I want to follow up on that. I think a lot of it can be or needs to be taught though too. And this is yes and not yes but to Kyle. I've had a lot of kids. I've been to blame for this where I've gotten chippy with a student of mine, a leader, after they've failed to do X, Y, Z. And when I can get over myself and step back and say, now wait a second, did I equip them to be able to do X, Y, Z? It's not fair of us to ask them to do something that we haven't taught them to do. And I'm the first one to say there are some kids who are natural born leaders. Most are not. And leading peers in teenage angst land is, and I'd never want to go back to high school, even though that's where I go 5 days a week. So to be able to say, to scaffold it, Jacob, to give them some early opportunities, like we do group building activities and things in our summer and early fall, have the kids lead that before they teach how to use Photoshop or before they teach how to use lenses and stuff. Because if they can teach a silly little game that's low stakes, high yield, hopefully it goes well, blah, 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 but it's scaffolding, right? And it's staging up and say, hey, I saw you lead them with that. Now let's try this. The other one that I'll do is a lot of times kids think that they know because they know how to use, let's say InDesign or Photoshop, that they know how to teach InDesign or Photoshop. And that is not true at frickin' all. And so with the kids that I have the least confidence in, even if they're on my leadership team, least teaching confidence in, I make them sit down and say, what are you going to do first? What are you going to do next? And the ones that go through it with me the first time, they realize, and I've had kids say to me, like, I never realized like the order that I teach this stuff in matters because they don't have that knack and they don't understand how having the black arrow in InDesign is the master of all, because that's how you move damn near everything. It doesn't matter if you can drop it in a text box if you don't know how to move it when you put it in the wrong place. So there's a reason that the black arrow is up at top, and so on and so on. So that scaffolding and giving them a place where they can fail low stakes, like group building games, is a really, in my opinion, a really smart idea.
I want to add on to that. Just
Sam, you want to go, and Kathy, and then Laura's got the last question, and then we'll close out. Sam?
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to add on, I think, make it clear who is the leader too. I think a lot of times, students come in and they assume that you as the adult in the room are the leader. That's true still even at the college level. A new student on staff assumes that I'm the leader. So I'm going to try to make it real clear that I'm not the leader. I'm there to advise. But we talk from the beginning about the structure and who's in charge, and part of that is me very rarely giving feedback directly to a staffer. If I think something was horrible and needs to be fixed, I'm talking to the editors about it, not about their staffer, and it kind of goes down through them.
Kathy?
I put mine in the comments too. I always give them group work, group projects to do, regardless of what it is. And then I just sit back and watch how they interact in a group, because you can see how kids are on how they encourage others. How your editor doesn't have to be the best one at doing. Your editor has to be the best one at inspiring. at teaching. And then you take and you watch and you start studying those skills that you see them, and then you help them grow them.
My best editor at the college, my second best editor at the college level was a botanist, but she was an amazing leader. She didn't do it. She didn't work in journalism a day in her life. After she got out of college, she's now a pretty well respected professional botanist, but she was an amazing leader. Okay, so Laura, you get the last question, and then we'll just go around everybody and get some closing thoughts.
Yeah, hi everyone. First, I'm a photo newbie, so I'd love it if in the chat, sorry, I have my teacher hat on, you could each share a camera rec, either for my staff or maybe for me for Christmas. So that would be awesome. And then secondly, the longer I've advised and the more I learn, the more inadequate I feel. I think it's because I'm a learner. I have my strengths. I'm very self-aware of my strengths and weaknesses. So how are you all juggling all of these hats in terms of advising? So obviously I have a strong writing background, but in terms of, and I was an editor for my college newspaper, but I just kind of like hacked InDesign and like figured it out, right? I never had like the training. So, and some of you I'm sure can relate to that, but like in terms of teaching all of these skills, photography, writing, reporting, you guys get it. How do you, and I think you touched on this with like having good editors and training them, but like, again, I often feel inadequate. Like, how do you balance like all of these skills and strengths and weaknesses and mastery, like as an experienced advisor?
Sam, you want to start?
I'd love to jump in, actually.
Oh, there's Mitch. Go for it, Mitch.
I muted myself because I was eating some chips and I had a bag here that was super noisy. Okay, so first of all, Laura, you're talking about the sense of being inadequate, and when you get a little bit of experience, you begin to ignore that. And what you begin to understand is that you cannot master everything. It is literally impossible. You have to sometimes, and that's why it's hard to start off new. I am an idiot about InDesign. I don't care about InDesign, and guess what? I mean, I'm okay with it, but I don't have to know InDesign because of the class culture that passes on InDesign. Now, there's no way that I have to pay attention to the photography, partly because honestly, I'm relatively new to it and it still has me fascinated and interested, but also there's really no one else in many ways who's ready to do it, except lo and behold, my experienced photographers are. So they're really quite good about it. A lot of what we do as we become very good at this profession is we learn to let go. We let go of responsibility for teaching everything. And what we think about is building a community and building a culture at our school that can pass the knowledge on. I mean, we have to oversee it for sure. And there's times when we have to go in and we see things slipping, but oh my gosh, my kids do so much of the teaching in my room.
Sam, thoughts?
I have one. Use the expertise. You do yearbook, correct?
I did yearbook for 8 years, took a break. I did newspaper for 6, and then the yearbook teacher just had a baby. So I'm doing yearbook right now and newspaper.
Yeah. Okay. So as much as I don't like templates for, like award-winning gold crown type books, templates can save your life if you're trying to build a program, so that you use the templates and you see how, those work and you can adapt them. And then you take good writing and you model that. And then for me, you concentrate on the photography because that's what the kids at your school are going to see. That's what they're really going to be affected by when they open up your publication, is that photography. But take advantage of the experts that are out there, especially in the yearbook realm, to help you get through that. They're there for a reason, and they know their stuff, and they have all kinds of resources that you can tap into. You do not have to reinvent the wheel at all.
Sam?
I think just, as you're starting out, you don't have to be good at everything right away. Like, know what you're strong in. And if that's photo, or if that's something else, like focus on that right away. And, each year you'll learn a little bit more. I mean, my background was in photo, but every year as an advisor, I become better at writing and design and some of these other aspects. So that'll come with time. Don't freak out about it all at once.
Isn't it cool to go in the newsroom and have the students doing something that you have no idea what they're doing and you can sit there and learn from them? I do enjoy that every day. Mike?
I think the biggest thing one of the biggest things you could teach your kids to do is how to find their own answers. My kids think that I'm brilliant, and I'm not. I'm just my Google foo is strong. And I can find the answer to anything I need in like 5 minutes. So, I mean, it looks good, and I definitely play into it. A cone of silence here, but so be it in design or, we were doing some portraits on green screen before. I had kids that needed to perfect their layer masking or this or that, and I just try to support and empower them because it's like me versus 44, and I only have so many fingers I can shove in the dike before I'm just getting water in the face. So teaching them how to help themselves, what Mitch said about the cultural knowledge passed down is massive. That's really, really important stuff, and it just becomes inculcated in your culture. It's just part of who you are.
It also solves Mark's grading problem, because if they can do all the critiques, then all you have to do is assign the grade. Then life is so much easier. Mark?
So I think, we've talked a little bit about that, the seniors and the juniors and sophomore and freshmen. I think one of the things that you do with those kids at the beginning of the year of their last year is challenge them. What's the one thing that they want to leave behind for next year's staff? What's their, what's the tradition? What's the knowledge? What's the fun thing? What is it that they want to be remembered by, or that they want this group that's getting ready to leave the school to be remembered by? And I think a lot of times, I can remember staffs where that senior photographer hoarded all the information because they wanted that kind of control and power. And so I think you always want to try to get them to think about, all right, what's your legacy? What is it that you're going to leave behind? And like Susan said, if you can get those seniors to start passing that knowledge on to next year's staff, it just builds from there and becomes stronger and stronger every year.
Eric Thomas had some really good ideas for legacy. I think that legacy was a really good thing. He used to have his staff pick one picture that symbolized their year, and ultimately the staff voted on it. And then they would make a 11 by 14 or 16 by 20 print of that, and the staff would sign it. And all of those pictures are hanging up in the room. So each staff has a legacy, and the pictures have teachable moments, but with the signatures and all of that. And I thought that was a cool little legacy idea as well. Susan?
Well, I don't know that I have a lot to add. The thing I think that as a beginning advisor that helped me the most was I did a lot of listening. It's like right now, I mean, I've been advising for 42 years, and what am I doing? I'm sitting here taking notes on what everybody's saying, because I know that I'm gonna pull that out one day and go, oh yeah, I remember when Mike said that. I remember when Mark said that. I remember when Mitch, Kyle, whoever said this. And find a mentor. There are lots of people who are willing to mentor, and I don't mean in any formal agreement, anything like that. I mean, H.L. Hall adopted me 1,000 years ago, and he was my journalism dad. And when I had a problem, I called him and cried. And now there are other teachers that call me and cry, and I call them right back and cry too. And because it doesn't ever get easy, which is what I love about what we do. I think I love the challenge of what we do. And so I guess rather than feeling inadequate, embrace that. Embrace the sense of there's always something new to learn. I don't know everything. I've been doing this for what feels like forever. And yet every year is new and different. And it's what I love about this. So I guess, I mean, I don't know that I'm telling you anything that hasn't been said 16 times already, but this really is about, it's not about the yearbook. It's not about the newspaper. It's not about photography. It's about the people, your students. It's about the friends that you make. It's about the people you look up to. It's about the people. It's about the people. I don't know what else to say.
That was pretty good.
That's a good way to end it.
I was sneaking a glass of wine through this thing, but cheers to that. So,
All right, Kyle, last thought on that, and then we'll just do a quick round the table and see
so
what
good, Susan.
closing thoughts.
I may start with both of those. So to what Susan just said, guys, don't be afraid. My first year, I decided that we were going to do something different with our yearbook, and everybody said, "Hey, you've lost your mind." So I got a hold of Mitch Eden at Kirkwood because we're always looking up, and I figured if we're going to shoot for somebody, we're going to go for the biggest and the baddest. And in the state of Missouri, there's nobody bigger than Kirkwood, and there's nobody better than Kirkwood. So I turned my students onto his students that year, and I got to know Mitch. And you're right. I had days that I would call Mitch and go, what do I do here? What do I do here? What happened? Wheels fell off today. Or we'll text back and forth, and my students will get a hold of his students. Duffy now does a lot of Zooms. He probably does 2 or 3 a week with different staffs, with different editors. Because here's the way that I give the picture, guys. I coach high school baseball as well. Can you imagine coaching a sport, but when you go out to play, you're playing some of your own teammates? You're not playing another team. You're just playing your own teammates all the time. And it gets old after a while. But you're not on your own little island. You can reach out for help. You can call anybody on the Zoom, I'm positive, would take the phone call. But at the same time, we all kind of have our own little strengths. If I need this, I call this guy. If I need this, I call this girl. And, if I'm stuck or one of my students is stuck, I'm like, well, let's call, Margie Rapert in Dallas, because this is what Margie does. So you get into a group like this and you get to know people. And I cannot explain how important it is to get to know the people that do this. Because in coaching, yes, I know my fellow coaches that are in my conference or in my district. And, I may call them and go, hey, we're playing Twin Rivers next week. What can you tell me about that big first baseman they've got? But I'll also call Mitch and go, hey, we're shooting the same football team you guys played 2 weeks ago. Do they run option right or option left? Or, on third down, do they throw a lot? Because I want my photographers to know before they take the field, because that's part of their prep work. So don't feel bad making a phone call or a text message or an email. Reach out anytime.
All right, so I'm going to start at the top of my list, and we'll just go down around everybody, and you get closing thoughts, whether it's a closing quick question or just a closing thought. So Alicia, you want to start? Maybe something that you thought that was really important, or something that a take-home lesson, or whatever.
Well, the whole evening has been just inspiring. I mean, it's I don't know if we had this whole week off, and I wasn't going to miss tonight, especially when I saw the lineup. I want to say probably what a couple of y'all have said is there's always someone, you're not on an island. And I know, Mike, I reached out to you last week. We've got to start those Friday nights, even if it's a Saturday morning, up again, because tonight really kind of emphasized that we need each other, especially during this crazy semester. And I am 52 pages into my senior spreads right now. I could really use it. So if anybody wants to do that weekly thing, I know Michelle and I would happily start hosting that if Callie and Mike don't want to do it again.
I can't say enough about that. I finally went to my dean today after a semester and said, you've got to start having some communication with the faculty, because everybody just retreated into their little holes, into their cubbies. And I take what Mike said earlier. It's like, we need to be paying as much attention to our mental health as we are anything else. Mike said something the other day. There was, we tell our students everything's going to be okay. And Mike said, but it's not, right? It's not going to be okay right now. Things aren't okay right now. So yeah, I've been so impressed with the virtual happy hours some of these groups have been doing. Absolutely. All right, Mitch. No, not 3 hours, Mitch. You're muted. You're muted, Mitch.
I feel like I have nothing left to say.
No, that's not true. That would be the first.
That would be a first. But seriously, I think the meetups, like I want to get on more of these with photography and other things, just because they're enormously useful. And sometimes you just open a bottle of wine and you get through a fair amount of it during the meeting. The stuff we did at the convention was so worth the things, those moments. So I think the idea of connection is super important, and we need to really pursue that now. And I need to pursue it, even though I supposedly know things, and I don't.
Sometimes it's just that some adults to talk to, right?
Yeah.
Elizabeth.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of everything that's already been said. It's just nice to like get to actually talk to people. We just met our first yearbook deadline today, so I've been drowning. So this is kind of like a nice little celebration.
Mark, awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think it's, there's some great resources out there. So ask, whether it's this group, whether it is, teachers in your area, whether it's your state association, make sure that it can be really tough to, especially right now, to feel like, oh, one more meeting, one more Zoom. But look how all of you are reacting to the conversation tonight. And it gives you a little, even if you've got the rest of this week off, it's going to give you a little bit more energy, maybe a little bit more pep, ready to hit the ground with some new ideas, or some, at least a little bit more energy about what you have to do to get between now and the end of the calendar year. So find these opportunities and take advantage of them. Don't hide away.
And if you need to hide away, Mark's going to have his guest room ready in Santa Fe here in a little while. So
yeah, 6 months into waiting for a permit. I don't think it's going to be anytime soon.
All right, Michelle.
I took 3 pages of notes while you all were talking. So I have looked up to, like Kyle said, when I jumped into this 8 years ago, I had no idea what yearbook was. And I was sick of English, and I still have English classes, but I needed something different. I needed a change, or I wasn't going to be teaching anymore. And so I've looked up to all of you for so long, and have followed you all on social media. So this was amazing. I was pretty down today. We had to push back our first deadline a week because the kids just aren't ready, and it's not their fault. They're working their butts off, but it's an entirely new staff this year, and we had to push it back a week, and I feeling like I had failed them. So this was super inspiring tonight, and I just want to thank you all for taking the time and talking to all of us. I mean, it means probably more than you all know. So thank you.
Michelle, the only thing I'll say about that is there's not a person at this table that hasn't missed a deadline. So
yeah, Mike said it at the convention too in one of his sessions, like just let it go. Like, and yeah, that's me. Like, it's okay. Like, it's okay. It's going to be what it's going to be. I just got to let it go. So yes. So thank you for reminding me of that again.
Agreed. Sam?
My takeaway is just reiterating what Mike said earlier, that you don't have to be good at everything, you just have to be good at Google.
Kyle?
So guys, for me, it is all about keeping our kids inspired. It's keeping them moving. It's giving them a reason to come to school tomorrow. Because I'll be perfectly honest, I've got a lot of kids that hate math and hate English and hate science and everything else. But you don't do this long term if you don't love it. If you don't love it, you get out. And that's just how it is. They get eaten up, they move on. But if you're in this, you love it, and you do. So we need to take care of ourselves, but we also need to make sure that we're taking care of our students. So, if it means I've got to stock Ritz crackers, or I've got to keep peanut butter and that kind of stuff in my room, then we're going to do it because that's what's best for them. But at the same time, we need that kind of stuff. And I know that I need this kind of stuff. You know, I need to sit in a group of adults and have adult conversation about the stuff that's going good and the stuff that's going bad. And I'm kind of fangirling just a little bit because I got a friend request from Mitch Ziegler just a second ago. And you know, Mitch has been an idol for a long time. So, you know, just how it is.
Got a network. Got a network.
All right, Laura.
This is just reminding me how awesome journalism people are. I was just reflecting as a new teacher. I helped a friend, another teacher, judge debate, and I realized that the other debate people, no offense if you're debate people, but they were like psychopaths and mean, like the other adults. And then when I had my first year of advising journalism, I was like, wow, these are my people. Like, they're so open and thoughtful. And I've noticed that from all of you, the fact that I'm sure you're on break or preparing for break, and 9 of you showed up tonight. So thank you for your time and enthusiasm. And I do really feel energized and inspired after this, after a really long 2 days, a really long 2-day week. So thank you.
Agreed. Kathy?
Bradley, do they all have our emails?
They do.
Okay. Just so you guys know, because now I teach, but smaller groups, I have written a booklet that has like 32 pages, and it has like 1 page on what Aperture is, and then the back has assignments and what to look for. If you write me at the email that you have for kdaily1023@gmail.com, I will send you that. And then you can print it off for your kids, and you can print it. They're each one a 1/4 page front to back. You can put a hole in the corner, and they can put it in their camera bags. They can use it. It has lessons to go with every single idea that they have to do. And if that will help you, then I will share that with you.
It is one of the coolest things about our profession, right? That we share. All right, Jacob, you went black. Were you still there? You're muted.
Sorry about that.
That's
I was
okay.
plugging my phone in. Sorry. So yeah, I just, like a lot of people said, this has been fantastic for me. I really appreciate everybody showing up and talking to us and being so candid. My big takeaways are really, that it's about the people, it's about the kids, trying to keep them energized, and that you don't have to know everything. I really appreciate that. That's something that I've really I think that's part of why I'm, pursuing a graduate degree right now, is that I don't feel like I know enough. And really it means volumes to me to hear people who are, I really respect, saying that it's okay to not know. I appreciate that a lot.
Awesome. Kevin?
All right, I really don't want to sound redundant to what everyone has already said, but I am going to be a little bit, just because what tonight was amazing. And I really appreciate everyone who came on here and took time out of their busy evening just to inspire us. So I really appreciate that. Now, I haven't received any friend requests yet, so maybe I didn't,
because I can't find you, Kevin. I've looked you up. I can't find you.
My on-air name is Kevin John. So, but anyway, I want to say, really everything that you guys said tonight was phenomenal. One of the biggest takeaways I received was earlier from Mike, when he said something to the effect that there's groups, we need to support one another. And even though I am currently not an educator, I still know with working in media, there is nothing more powerful than a support group, because that's something that we all need, because it's rough, and it can, especially this year, was challenging. So that's a big takeaway amongst everything else. So thank you guys, really appreciate it.
Susan?
I don't know that, again, I don't know that I have a bunch. The number one thing I think we haven't said is make the room belong to the kids. We have a Keurig, we have a microwave, we have a refrigerator. We just found out that we're headed back to fully remote learning. And the first thing out of my kid's mouth was, oh, but we were going to put up Christmas lights, because we put up Christmas lights just as soon as Thanksgiving is over. And we generally leave them up until the final deadline for the yearbook. because the kids just like the ambiance of the room with, I mean, literally every spot of the ceiling covered with Christmas lights. And so one of my goals is to make, I write in the little thing about the class when they first get in, this is going to be your favorite class. And I work hard to make the space that is my classroom, that is my computer lab, that is our studio, that is all the things that are in my room. I work to make that the kids' favorite place to be. Not so they'll work for me, but so that they have a place, because I think everybody should have a safe place at school. And the journalism room, I work hard to make it that. So I guess that's my final thought. You got to work to make it a place for everybody.
Susan, how many years have you been in the same room?
Well, I've been in the same school for 40 years. And I was down the hallway and around the corner for 17 years. And then I've been in the same room for the remaining 23. So, and I got to design the room. So that was a cool thing. Now I would like to redesign it. I just finally took out our dark room. We had a 7-station dark room. Yep, exactly, Kyle. And we put a green screen in, and it's a studio now. It has lockers for cameras. Well, right now it's actually full of all the furniture that we can't use in the classroom because you got to be 6 feet apart. But someday it'll be functioning and wonderful.
We're working just around the corner. Jennifer.
Yes, I just want to second the appreciation and thank you all for being here. I took a lot of notes. I am yet to be a journalism educator, but I'm just really looking forward to that day. What all of you have given me is the idea that, you know, when I first started this degree, this is my first class in this master's program, and I went into it to be a yearbook advisor. And to me, I was like, that's all there is, yearbook advisor, that's it. And now with everything that you all have talked about and this photography class, you know, I could be a photography teacher, I could be a newspaper advisor, you know, there's so many ways to teach what we all have been learning. So thank you.
Stephen, awesome. Stephen.
I think my takeaway every time no matter if it's like a workshop during the summer or a roundtable kind of like this, I always get the same takeaway, which is because I'm one of those people that, like Laura, am always comparing myself and always thinking like I'm not doing enough. Oh, and by the way, Laura, I am one of those psychopath debate teachers too. And you're right, we are all psychopaths, so you have to have a little bit of that in there. So I always take away the same thing. It's a refresher of that. Doing this is like eating an elephant. You have to do it one bite at a time. And so, like, you know, I always have to figure out what my next bite is. And this year my bite is taking smaller bites. So, you know, whatever it is, we're all still learning. And so it's just the next time is always figuring out what the next thing I'm going to focus on that year is and just to get better at.
Awesome. Mike Simmons, you always have the best last words. So I'm leaving the last word.
Bradley.
But after
Okay.
Mike gets through, if the students would hang around for just a second, that would be really swell. So, Mike.
So Elizabeth, I was going to say that sound that you heard 2 Mondays ago was my staff blowing past their deadline like we were doing 90 and a 35. I've been doing this for 20 years and we're nowhere close. So if any of the rest of you are in the suck, I'm right there with you. I remember meeting Melissa Felikowski for the first time after the shooting at Parkland in 2018. I had known Sarah, the yearbook advisor, for a bit through socials, and Melissa and Sarah brought students to CSPA. What, Mark? Like not even 5 weeks afterwards. Not even a full month. And one of the things that stuck with me, and it came up in the Raise Your Voice documentary that was shown at JEA, which we can license for showing in our schools for I think $160, and it would be $160 well spent for all of us to support those filmmakers. Email me if you don't know what I'm talking about. But the thing that Melissa said then and said at CSPA, or one of the students said, was that in the aftermath of all of that and trying to find their way as student journalists, but also members of that school and community, was they were so keenly aware of all of the national media out there that really like assaulted their community and campus. They said, the kids said, we knew that we were the ones best equipped to tell our own story. And I think empowering our students and student journalists and recognizing the validity of their interests and their concerns and their struggles and those of their classmates can help us stand in support of them telling those stories, and recognizing that it's really long gone that the high school yearbook is the domain of the homecoming queen, the quarterback, and Spirit Week. And that if we can localize coverage about things like climate change or mental health issues or COVID or the rest, and we recognize that our newspapers and online sites can do all of that and more, and that we need to not only run student-centered newsrooms, but empower them in their relationships with our school administrators, which can be fraught and tender, especially when it comes to authority and roles and employment and insubordination and all sorts of things like that, that are a whole other night of Zooming and more wine to have those conversations. But it matters. Really, what matters is our kids' journalism and our kids' work and our kids' development. And just a coda to that, you know, they're not in our classes to learn to become better photographers. They're not in our classes to learn to do better interviews or design better spreads or websites. When we look at what college and career readiness looks like and what our programs can deliver to those kids on project management or group work or collaboration or communication or conflict resolution or flexibility or planning or confidence or any of the rest of it, that's the stuff that's going to stay with the kids when they're 37 and 57 and 77, that they'll look back and they'll say, holy cow, like Mr. Murray was there for me and Mrs. Massey was there for me, and that made a difference, and my time there mattered. So that's my thing.
All right, round of applause for everybody. So speakers, thank you guys so much, guys and gals so much. I really, really appreciate your time. Everybody's time is so valuable. And the fact that you took 2 hours out of your evening on the night before you're leaving to go somewhere or do something for Thanksgiving, I certainly really appreciate it. And to all of you all, I owe you one. So let me know when you're going to collect on that project, except for Mark. Yeah, we're even a long time ago, right?
Yeah.
Not yet. That's right. I got pictures, Mark. You better be careful.
I think I have pictures of you too. So
thank you all very much.
That's what happens when you know each other for 30 plus years.
Yeah, almost more than that. All right, so speakers, thank you so much. Students, if you hang around for just a sec, a couple little just logistical things. Bye.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Have a great day, Thursday.
Happy Turkey Day.